Do you know the difference between impossible consequences and uncomfortable consequences? This is a story of a sliding door moment. I helped somebody buy an apartment at the end of last year, and it was pretty much the bottom of the market, although of course we didn't know that at the time. She'd sold her house just before prices started falling, literally at the peak of the market. And again, she didn't know that at the time either. That was just luck. And then she had all this money in the bank, but no sense of urgency, because by the time she settled and moved out, the headlines were full of falling prices. Fast forward 9 months and she was happily renting in absolutely no hurry to buy. Every now and then she popped out, had a look at a property for sale and thought, I don't like any of these, they're too small. I'm in no hurry, I still have a lease. There's no rush, I'll wait and see. But when she saw me and told me what she needed in a property and what her budget was, I could see that she indeed did need to act. Because her budget actually wasn't enough. And if the market turned around, I could see that she'd easily be left behind. For starters, she was looking in the wrong suburb. She had a few suburbs that she was interested in, but she wasn't looking in all of them. When I showed her where she could get the space that she needed for her budget, we immediately came up with a really good option. And this is a good story because she bought it, she moved in, and by that time, prices had actually started rising again. Not only that, but interest rates were also rising, which means that her borrowing capacity would have shrunk had her pre-approval expired. Now, I don't have a crystal ball and I don't profess to have known exactly how this was going to play out, but I do know the difference between uncomfortable consequences and impossible consequences. Let's imagine that prices continued falling. And in this scenario, perhaps in 6 months' time, she might have been able to buy this same property for 5% less. Now that would be an uncomfortable consequence. It would feel uncomfortable to know that perhaps if you'd waited, you could have paid less. But at least she'd be uncomfortable in her own lovely home. Instead, let's look at what the impossible consequence could have been. If, however, she didn't buy and the market turned, as it did, the impossible consequence would have been that she was priced out of the market and that she would no longer have been able to buy that lovely home that she did buy. She would have had to settle for something much smaller or perhaps a lot further away. She would have missed out, and what she hadn't realized was how close she was to that. And the moral of this story, it is that if you can buy, you should buy. Don't try to second guess the market. The market has a mind of its own and it's completely out of the control of any individual buyer. This could have been a tragedy, but instead it's actually a good news story. Now, if you're looking at buying a property in Sydney and you're worried that you might be on the cusp of an impossible or an uncomfortable consequence, we can show you how you can work out what type of property you can buy, where you're likely to buy it, and exactly what you're going to get for your money. You can book a 20-minute game plan session in with one of my team, and they can help you work out whether you are in fact at a sliding door moment.